Okay, you guys are live over YouTube, so you can start the meeting.
Good morning, everyone. It is 10:02 and I will call the meeting to order. I will start by saying if you see me talking over my left shoulder, I'm talking to Greta, who's taking the minutes for the meeting. The only committee member that's not with us this morning is George Meservy, who had a conflict. Let me start by addressing public comment. I did receive a few emails after the agenda was set, so let me go through those. The first is from a resident on Forest Way who's looking for some signage on Quonset Road to respond to speeding vehicles. I took a ride out there yesterday and there are no speed limit signs, whether they be under 9018 or 9017. So that is something I think that we should address with establishing some signs. First thing we need to do is what is the appropriate speed limit there? Do we feel that that is a thickly settled area?
Chief,
yes,
can you give me that location again, please?
Quonset Road.
Just Quonset in general. Okay.
And Tom, I might have missed it, but I took a ride down there yesterday. I didn't see any signage.
I don't recall seeing anything, and we've been spending some time down there gearing up for some paving work.
So what we're looking at is this thickly settled 30 or this is undivided 40? My basic assessment is that, and we all know 200 feet, distance of a quarter of a mile to reach that threshold of thickly settled. I think we might be close, Tom, but I think we'd have to do some additional analysis to determine that.
Yeah, that's what's nice about these Zoom meetings. I'm zooming right in on the WebGIS right now as we speak, and it looks pretty thick down there. We could do, okay, at least okay, you're going to have part of it. You're going to have, I'm guessing, you know, without a real analysis, from Route 28 down to Davis Road, you can probably pull off thickly settled, at least down to Uncle Israel's, definitely, probably. Maybe you could squeeze it down to Davis, but beyond that, you're probably not. But at least you could get something out there.
Okay.
You know?
Tom, could we add that to your list for an assessment of that area?
Yeah. Thanks, Jay. Sure.
Hey, Scott, this is Matt. If I could just throw in, this is my old neighborhood. Forest Way is right around a fairly sharp curve. So if the complaint is coming from Forest Way, my guess is that traffic coming down Quonset from 28 comes around that curve and it's close enough to make pulling out a little bit of an adventure.
You're correct, Meth. That was mentioned specifically. I talked to the gentleman on the phone, and that did come up as an issue. So I think we have to take a look at the street as a whole and see what kind of improvements, signage improvements that we can make. But I think the first step in this is properly establishing the speed limit on that road. And for the folks that are listening at home, understanding how that is done is addressed in two specific Massachusetts general laws, 9017 and 9018. 9017 is the yellow signs that you see. They're advisory, but it is prima facie evidence when you have a violation. 50 miles an hour on divided highways, 40 mile an hour on undivided highways, which would be some of our local streets. 30 miles an hour in thickly settled and 20 miles an hour in school zones. There's been some new language added to 17 that addresses a 25 mile an hour zone, but there's quite a few hoops that you have to jump through to get there. So if we could take a look at that and if appropriate, get some signs up, I think that would be helpful. Everyone agree with that?
Yeah. Scott, can I just ask one question on that formula? Does the width of the road enter into a speed limit at all?
So, Matt, that's a really good question. And let me go into more detail. When you see the white signs, the white speed limit signs, those are the result of a thorough engineering study. Those speed limits, as you know, in following the study, those have to be approved by the registry and the Department of Transportation in Massachusetts. And anything else would not be enforceable under the 9018 statute. So what they look at when they establish that, one of the driving factors is what we refer to as the 85th percentile. And you hear me talk about the 85th percentile a lot, but that is not the only factor. Roadway design, congestion, other things come into play when they determine the appropriate speed limit under 9018. But in most cases, that 85th percentile is a driving factor. One of the things as a community we need to be aware of, when we bring in someone from the outside to conduct this study and they establish a speed limit under the 9018, we're stuck with it. So it might come in higher than we think it should be as a community. So it's something we need to consider before we go through that process. Okay. The next email that I received is from a gentleman regarding Doan Landing. This has been an ongoing process, and Meph, I know you're aware that Nate and I have been working with the Board of Selectmen for the past year on identifying traffic-related priorities at our town landings, and more so parking prohibitions and how we're going to address these issues. With COVID-19 and our response as a community, some of these things have been put on the back burner, and I think in our response to the town landings, that is one of those items. At some point, we are going to have to bring this forward again, and we're going to need to make some decisions on how we want to establish the procedures and the following enforcement in these particular areas. And Meph, am I on the right path?
My memory was that you proposed and the select board approved Doan Way as a a place where we would enforce no parking along the road. I think there is. I don't think that extended into the town. There's a town landing cul-de-sac where parking would be allowed, correct?
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to address there. Now, with the parking on the streets, and this is presently a concern that we've responded to, you see a lot of the emergency order parking prohibition signs up in East Orleans because it's, as you all know, it's such a problem this time of year. It becomes a problem where we can't get emergency vehicles into a specific area, and we can't allow that. So that's why we're taking this action. Doan Landing itself, we had a discussion with the board in terms of, shell fishermen that are properly permitted with the town need to have access. So that's one of the things. You are right, Meph, that we did discuss this relative to the parking outside, but we were going to come back to the board with more specific information on resident parking only. We wanted to take this to the next level. So I'll talk to John and at the appropriate time and get this back on the agenda so we can revisit it.
And I think Priscilla should be on the list too.
Yeah, and what Nate and I were trying to do is that this is a problem in many, if not all of our town landings, but trying to just prioritize our top concerns and kind of test and evaluate any remedies that the board might see fit, and then maybe push that out to the other landings.
Yeah, it's at Doan and Priscilla, you have the town landing issue, plus you have people that are trying to get to the beach either without paying their $20 down at the parking lot or to join other people they know on a different part of the beach. But that's something that really needs to stop.
Yeah, and we trying to respond to that and get as many resources up in that area as we can, because it is a problem, and it's especially in the last few years. So it's a challenge, to say the least. The next email that I had from Sid Snow, concerned about some sightline issues at the new roundabout, specifically when you're traveling down 6A towards Eastham and entering the roundabout. Maybe some of the shrubbery was blocking the view of vehicles traveling in the opposite direction in the roundabout. I took a ride down there yesterday, and yeah, it's an issue. You know, you can see the cars come up on you kind of quickly. You don't really see them coming in to the roundabout. And Tom, I'll defer to you to see if there's anything we could do to that for that.
All right, so Chief, you had sent me that email and I looked at it, but I just saw it this morning, so I haven't done a drive-by yet. So bear with me, but I was a little, just slightly confused. So if I'm on 6A, heading towards Eastham, right? I come down by Christmas tree shops and I hit the roundabout. On the right or the left, where's the issue?
So as I'm preparing, if I'm traveling 6A towards Eastham and I'm preparing to enter the roundabout,
Yeah,
you can see cars coming in from 6A heading in the opposite direction, about to enter the roundabout, okay?
Yeah.
But if there is a vehicle that's already in the roundabout to my left, as I'm preparing to enter it, there's an obstructed view.
all right, Ron and I'll go take a look at that. Depending on it's okay, I mean, whatever, we'll go take a look at it, we'll do whatever we can do. It is all state layout. You know, none of that's ours unless it's Canal Road area. You know
So
what
would
I
that
mean?
include the maintenance of
Yeah.
the plantings? That's all state?
Yeah, but so let's talk about that. So we had a meeting, a 28, hold on a second here. We had a meeting on the landscaping for the 2839 roundabout, a couple weeks ago. And we had the DOT landscape architect on the line, so we were going over maintenance issues. And, you know, we basically said, look at, we want the 28-6A roundabout works great. It's a good roundabout. The landscaping's horrible. I mean, I've been hearing that since day one. They own it right now. They're taking care of it. But so I said, look, I don't want to do the same thing on the 2839 roundabout. I want to do something that's attractive, low maintenance, and we'll take care of it. We had, you know, we'll do an agreement with the state. We'll just take care of it. As part of that process, at the same time, I want to take over the 6A in 28 roundabout. So that's coming. It's not ours yet, but that's going to come where we're going to take that over and take care of it. So anyway, I just want you guys to be aware. Long story short, Ron Trudeau and I will go out. No one's going to care out there if we do something out there. So let me and Ron go take a look at that, and we can report back next week. We'll just take care of it. If it's something we can just take care of.
All right, thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. And that's all I had for emails that came in after we set the agenda. And the next item that we have is the approval of minutes from what was it, May 28th.
Hey, Chief, can we
Yes.
bounce back for 1 second on
Sure.
Quonset? Just so I kind of mentioned it, I just want everyone to be clear, and it will affect speeding. I'm paving that road. Ron and I will be out there this fall, loots in hand, paving that road, all the way down to the end, to the landing. Okay.
Tom,
that
I think that
project's-
underscores the importance of us
Yeah.
getting some speed regulation out there.
Yeah.
Because we all know that after you pave a road, the tendency is for vehicle speed to increase significantly. So
Yep, yep. And
Chief,
on
can I-
that being said, back to that conversation a little bit, just looking at it, you know, I feel pretty comfortable we should be hopefully okay down to Uncle Israel's to put up the yellow 30 mile per hour. But when I said Davis Road, that, I'm sure Meth knows this, that's across the street from Forest Way. I might be able to sneak it down that far, but we got to take a looky at it. That's preliminary look. So just let me know.
If I could just say on Quonset Road, the stretch from, well, actually all the way from 28, if you're going on Quonset Road, it's a straightaway all the way to that curve that goes around to Forest Way. So the opportunity to go fast is really there. And there's some undulation too, which I think can even be enough to hide pedestrians from cars when you come over the
Yeah,
rise. So,
the vertical profile of the road can be difficult. Yeah.
so I guess my question is, Tom, in your repaving, are you going to recover any lost width that the town has experienced over time because of lawn growing over the pavement?
We usually we usually do. We go out, we clean back the edges and we sweep it back. But similar to Beach Road, as you guys recall, similar to Beach Road, there were some areas we probably took back 18 inches or a foot where a couple of lawns crept out. In fact, one of those lawns still has a scarp right there at the edge of pavement. So the short answer is yes, we will make a point to do that.
And just, next time this opportunity comes up at the select board meeting, I mean, I think as a general rule or policy that the town should be recovering all of its layout, whenever the opportunity arises.
Yeah, and that's standard operating procedure. Every road we scrape back and sweep back. So on a paving project, maybe not every one on a chip seal, but on a paving project, we always scrape back. In fact, I want to check Quonset Road. Is it laid out or not? Because that's all.
I can't believe it is.
Let's see, Quonset. It's laid out. We got a layout. We own some real estate out there.
So
that's
I
interesting.
guess so. The question is, what can be done for pedestrians and bicyclists on a road like that?
Whatever you want to spend money on. We can do all kinds of things.
I just one last note on that. I was surprised how many pedestrians and joggers. I didn't see any cyclists in just my short time on Quonset yesterday. So they're out there. Okay, let's come back to the minutes. Any issues with the minutes from May 28th?
I got one, I think. Yeah, I have one. Hold on one second. Let me get to them. Under 5 open issues, C2 on the second page. 3, 4, 5, 6th line. I'll go to the 5th line. I'll read it. Right now it says, like some research to be done on tables first before a decision is made, as the cost is 15 to 20K. I didn't say is, I was specific, could be 15 to 20K. And that needs to be, I can't be quoted on that one. I'll be honest with you, that number is old. So I'm thinking it could be more, but let's just say that's what the old number used to be, like 15, 20K for a speed table.
I agree.
Goes back
No, I
15
think that's
years.
reasonable.
So, but anyway, that depends how we do it and how much we have to do, and depends on the location. So, it's just kind of let people know it's not cheap.
Okay, so we'll make that correction, Tom, and we'll come back to this issue because this is something we'll be talking about later on in the.
Right, that's all I had in the minutes, though, Jim.
Is there anyone else? Except a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
With that change.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll
to approve.
second it, Jim.
Second. All in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
I also approve. Okay.
Second.
Jeff.
Oh, I thought he made the motion. He made the motion, you did.
Okay. So open issues. Nauset Regional Middle School parking lot safety. I know we were running some discussions with the superintendent on funding, Tom.
Yeah, so I did, like, per the last meeting, I said I'd reach back out to him, which I did. I sent an email out on May 28th, and I haven't heard nothing. I CC'd Jeff on that email, just because Tony and I had the previous conversations with, mostly Tony, actually, with Tom. It's funny, too, because, Tom and I had a bit of interaction back and forth setting up the town meeting, but, nothing on the money for the guardrail. Jeff, do you want to reach out to Tom about this? And just see if you can get
Absolutely.
a little headway.
No, I'll see if we can open that up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the concerns that Chief Pike had are very similar to the concerns I have. Those
Right.
concerns haven't gone away.
Right.
So we need to look at that.
I think the number at the time was like 10,500 off the cuff, but just see if he had any luck on that.
Will do.
Happy to meet with him again if he wants, whatever you want to do.
Okay, I'll reach out to him and get back to the group.
Yeah, Jeff will do it.
Thanks.
Okay, so we will keep that on as an agenda item for next meeting. The next is, again, our reoccurring traffic calming devices and methods status update. I'm going to go into more detail on my update to the Board of Selectmen. But while we're here, the board did authorize the removal of the raised paint on Skakit Beach Road. And again, for the folks that may be listening at home or watching, this is a method that we were testing and evaluating. At the end of the day, unfortunately, it did not work. It did not slow vehicles down, and it created an irritating noise for residents in the area. let me give you just some quick data. What we were looking at in that area, and as a side note, we did get a speed data box back from repair, so I can have that out around town. And again, that's a device, not the same type of device as our solar speeds. You don't know this is in the area. So we get a more accurate reflection of the speed of vehicles. 2020, this year in June, we're looking at an 85th percentile of 32 miles an hour. And that's in that Skakit Circle area. Previous data that we collected that I had is back in 2016, and the 85th percentile, and that was in August, was 29 miles an hour. So clearly no significant improvement. In fact, the speeds did increase somewhat from 16 to 20. So we need to go back to the drawing board as it relates to other traffic calming methods that we could use. But Tom, before we do that, can I ask you what we're looking at for a time frame to have those raised paint lines removed?
Well, that's up to Ron Trudeau, right, Ron? Anyway, so here's where we're at. Here's the status. We got a price of about, I got it right here, to remove those, you know, say $1,300 to remove those. We have the need from time to time to do pavement marking removal. And in fact, when we redid the lines on West Road for the bike lanes over there, you know, that was a significant cost. I don't remember off the top of my head. Ron might remember, but it was a significant cost. And, you know, last year when we redid the beach area, the beach parking lot, we blacked out a lot of lines. And when you black out lines, one, you can now you see a black line on pavement, but that black paint fades out over, so you have to paint them again, you know. So I was talking with Ron, and we decided we're going to buy a pavement marking removal machine, and it's about $5,500. And I got the money in my vehicle stabilization fund account to do that. And so Ron has already started the purchasing process to buy this thing. So I can't give you an exact time right now. We'll do it ASAP. Ron has reached out to the salesman that we've already been dealing with, getting the pricing and putting this together. But we're going to see how quick we can get it in, how quick we can train up the guys. It's not that hard, you know, but we've got to show the guys how to use the machine. And then we'll get out there and we'll do it right away.
All right, thanks.
So, I mean, I would like to think, you know, hopefully within a month we'll get them out, because I don't want to keep throwing good money at the bad removing parking lines. I'd rather just have a machine that I can just send one of my guys out and just take it out, because we get the use for it.
Okay, the neighbors in the area have been very understanding and patient, so we certainly.
Yeah, we'll get it done ASAP. Mr. Trudeau, you know how Trudeau responds. He's hot on it. It'll get done.
I'll make a point to get it done quickly.
Thanks, Ron. If there are no objections, I'd like to go to a couple other quick items and take care of those before we come back and have more of an in-depth discussion on where we want to go with some of the devices and methods and whatnot. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, here are no objections. Crosswalk on Route 28 in Cove Road. Thank you, Tom. I know you made some calls and got that done. That is now painted.
Yeah.
Okay, we can take that off the list.
Yeah.
Complete streets update. Anything to add?
George is kind of our guy. I wouldn't have current accurate information.
Okay. Cape Cod Commission Bike Rack Program. Again, Tom, thank you very much. You want to give us an update on where we are?
Really thank George and I did it together. George put the paperwork together. We got the bike racks. We got all of them. We got like 11 locations, landings, everything else. I think, I don't know, was it in the minutes, the locations, but we got the bike racks, and I talked to George about delivery. I actually asked him to wait until after July 1, because we got to pay for the shipping. We didn't know that when we first applied. So Public Works is donating about $1,200 worth of shipping to get these things all here. But so George at this point, in fact, I'll just make a note to reach out to George and email him, order racks. So we got the grant. Now we can get them in. we'll start installing, it'll probably, I'm gonna guess, it'll probably take a month or so to get them in. And then as Ron can start installing them, we'll work on the locations and getting them installed.
No, that's a great job by you and George, Tom. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
It's been nice to have those around town.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question, Chief?
Certainly.
Is the 11 racks, is that it on the grant deal from Cape Cod Commission, or is there an opportunity to get more if we want them?
Right now, to talk to George. I can't answer that.
We had next item, we had a street light request in the vicinity of 174 South Orleans Road. I did leave a message for the gentleman and did advise him that the town has a current prohibition in place against additional street lights. Occasionally we do get requests for these things. I'm assuming that the board's position on this has not changed. And Meth, if you hear otherwise at some point, if you could just let me know, so we'll be up to date, I'd certainly appreciate it. Okay, that's all we have for old business. New business, I'll start with my update to the Board of Selectmen. The primary purpose for that update was to request a removal of the raised paint on Skakit Beach Road, but while I was there, I wanted to talk to the board a little bit about what this committee does and what our focus has been over the last few meetings. And we know that is identifying traffic priorities in town, additionally identifying methods and or specific devices to try to calm traffic and ultimately reducing the risk of crashes on our roadways. One of the very important points that I think I needed to make, and Meth, this is with your tremendous support, is that we need a funding source. Historically, when we have a device that we thought would be beneficial, Tom, you'd reach into your budget and try to reprioritize and find the money somewhere, or we use the Toyota account. I've purchased solar speed signs from my account, but these items weren't budgeted for. So we need to have some sort of line in one of our budgets where we can have some sort of funding. Now, Andrea Reed brought up a great idea about using a grant opportunity, shared streets and space grant program. She sent me the link to that, and she also volunteered to assist us with writing that grant when we have specific proposals that we want to move forward. I think the board was very receptive to the recommendation, but we didn't get into exactly how we're going to get this done above and beyond maybe utilizing the grant. Meth, did I cover that accurately?
Yeah, and I guess Andrea's add-on with the grant was great, but in my mind, the discussion is finding a line item in the town budget. And there's two things that we need money for. One is, either buying or installing something new, and then maintaining. The second thing is maintaining what you've already got. I mean, there's road painting, for instance, as a ongoing maintenance need. Pedestrian crosswalks come to mind as being, you get them freshly painted and a couple of years later they're fading, or I don't know what the time frame is, but ultimately we go for a period of time where you can't even see, the paints in the roads. So, and then you've got other kinds of maintenance on flashing speed limit signs or whatever it is. So I think there's two parts to the funding line, maintenance and purchase. And then the last piece is who wants to own it. Some department is going to have to adopt it as its own.
I'm happy to. That's public works. I'm good with that. Meth, can I chime in with you for a minute on this?
Yeah.
Few things, the grant too, but let me start with maintenance. So, I envision, this is just my 2 cents for what it's worth. I mean, I envision this line as, an opportunity to buy you know, like this more solar signs or put in some hardwired signs or whatever, you know, do by traffic calming measurements, you know, speed bumps, what, you know, whatever, you know what I mean? That is a funding source. But I see my operating budget as the maintenance piece, right? So like line striping, we have lines in our budget for line striping. If you ever see something that is fading out, let me know. Because if it's like a crosswalk or something that's just fading out, we can, you know, I have a painting machine. I can send the guy out and I can paint it. It also, you know, you remember though, is it ours or is it the state? So, you know, but whatever. We do go out virtually every year and line stripe this entire community. You know, we do it with a contractor. But anyway, but let me know if you guys see anything, but I already have funds for that, for maintenance, but I kind of see this as, you know, like a small capital account for traffic calming measures, but I'm happy to own it. Chief, can I go back to the grant for a minute?
Certainly.
All right, so George and I, it's too bad George isn't on today. George and I looked into that grant a little bit. And he dug in deep into the grant itself, but then he got back to me. So one of the limitations on it, or at least they say it's a limitation on it, is has to be executed and done by, you know, October or something. But before that, George and I were talking a little bit, and one of the ideas, he mentioned a sidewalk, and the one I came up with is I've got Old Colony Way is a project I want to move forward, preferably before we pave it as part of the sewer project, okay? You know, I want to put chicanes out there, traffic calming, you know, there's a lot of different things, you know, improve the crosswalks I would like to do on Old Colony Way. One of those, and I did a concept plan on it actually myself a few years ago, and it works, it fits, because we had the downtown survey done. So I was able to take the downtown survey and actually do some engineered drafting and go, okay, you know, like this actually does fit. My concept isn't, you know, pretty, but it works. I proved that it can work. We discussed a sidewalk on the, let's see, where the art sheds are, Chocolate Sparrow side, a sidewalk on the Chocolate Sparrow side from Maine all the way up to Dunkies, okay, up to that plaza. Because right now there's no sidewalk on that side. The only sidewalk is on the other side, and that's a pretty busy area. And we can fit one, we can make it work. And we already had, FST did some concepts, some traffic calming on Old Colony, probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And so I incorporated some of that, you know, chicanes and the crosswalks, particularly the crosswalk at the Chocolate Sparrow and Depot Square, you know, improving that crosswalk. So I'm just letting this committee know, as the traffic safety committee, that was one that him and I came up with. But I think we need, if there are some specific ideas that came out of the meeting with the Board of Selectmen, I think it'd be good to share them with George, because he's up to speed on the parameters of the grant and the timeframes.
Well, hopefully by the end of this meeting, we'll establish a priority where we can really see if we can get this done. You know, and let's come back to that. Let's come back to that. Let me go back to old business, because I did forget one item, which is Main Street and River Road. Some concerns again of speeding vehicles in that particular area. The way we left it off last meeting, Tom, you were going to see if you had any money left. I'm assuming that that is not the case, along with my budget.
Yeah, we scrape by, and just, you know, for everyone on, like, you know, so, you know, we had to give back, you know, because of reduced revenues, potential revenues from COVID-19. My number, like 110 grand was the ask to give back, and we gave back 150 right out of the gate. Not to be a hero, but we did it because we know how it affects the budget in this year's budget. So, like, you know, George Missouri doesn't have to lose a secretary, you know what I mean? You know, trying to do as much as we could, but with saying that we scraped through the end of this fiscal year. In fact, I feel pretty good that we're out of the woods, but we don't know for sure if we're out of the woods yet. You know, we still got some bills coming in. You know, this is the last week of bills, so we're trying to clean it up. But yeah, it's too late now anyway, because the fiscal year is over. But yeah, there's no way I can make that commitment.
Again, I think the direction this committee was going into when we last met was, we really like these solar speed limit signs.
Yeah.
And it really attracts the driver's attention. So it's at this point, it's just a matter of finding the funding to get a sign up in that area. Now, something we've also talked about is that, one sign's not going to do it because you have vehicles traveling in both directions. So you'd want to properly space those devices out, but you also want to hit that targeted area, which concerns us most. So I guess at this point, I think we should leave that on as a future agenda item, and we have to find the funding to try to do this.
So if I can suggest it, just throw it out to our select board liaison. So we got a special town meeting coming up in the fall with all the quote unquote extra items or whatever you want to call them that didn't make the annual town meeting because we had a reduced annual town meeting, which is fine. So the question is do we want to ask to create this account, this traffic calming account in Public Works at the special town meeting?
I would encourage that. I can only speak for myself, and we're going to be running into at the same time this is all going on, tomorrow night, the select board has its first meeting with the FinCom about the future of Orleans finances and overrides and things like that. So there's going to be a sort of a dialogue going on at the same time about how we manage the budget going forward. But I would encourage getting this traffic calming thing up and going, even if it begins modestly. The important thing is to get it started. Mm-hmm. And just one add-on on this conversation on River Road. I think that entire little section with the triangle in the middle across from the cemetery is a trouble spot for is a dangerous spot for bicyclists and pedestrians in particular, but speeding and whatever that goes along with it. The cars coming from the beach toward town that want to take a left on School Street, they have to sort of be looking over that rise to see if cars are coming in the opposite direction, and it encourages them to go fast through that turn. And at the same time, bicycles are coming toward them, and cars that are coming out of School Street to turn right are being are having bicyclists cross over in front of them as they're trying to pull out. It's
it's an idea, Matt. Maybe we should.
No, I don't have any. I don't have the answer.
No, I have an idea. Maybe we should close the end of school. Make them bang a left upriver to go out to the beach. Close it. Close the road there. Don't let people from Maine onto school, and don't let people. You could let bicyclists, but don't let vehicles. I've done it. I did it in Newton in a number of locations.
You're saying people that are coming from South Orleans, like using the Monument Road route to get over there to the beach, would have to reroute?
Well, if they want to do that, they bang a left on River and then come up, next to the Historical Society and go right.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
it slows everyone down is all it does.
Right. That might not be a bad idea. I don't pretend to have the answers here. I just know.
So I'm looking at
the problems.
I've heard about the Towns Entertained doing a sidewalk on Main, by the cemetery right there. I did hire VHB to do some concept work on Main because that's another project like Old Colony. I would like to move forward Main basically from Academy, including the intersection of Townsend, Main and the lights, the whole deal, all the way out to Beach. And the reason is it's time to, from a pavement management standpoint, it's time to do something in Main Street over the next 3 years. And I would like to redo the sidewalks. I'd like to build a sidewalk by the cemetery, redo the intersection, the street light, this traffic signal at Townsend and Main. But maybe we could look at that as part of that program look at doing something with those because I actually didn't even think of that, look at that intersection. That's a tough spot. In River's not easy either, but maybe we adjust River to tee it off a little more square with Maine to get a better view coming out of River, and that could work. I honestly, I think we should, I think we should put it at the end of school, just put like a sidewalk, a multimodal sidewalk, 10 feet wide, you know what I mean? Up over the Main, you know what I mean? So people can walk it and people can bike it, but you can't get a car there, It'll be a new little bit of an education for people, but I've done it. It's very doable. Something to consider down the road, but.
Would you have to outsource that, Tom, or could you?
What's that?
Would
What's
you
that?
have to outsource that project?
Oh, God. You mean construction, engineering, probably all that.
Okay.
But
So
I
we're
mean,
looking
look when it comes to closing School Road, we could do that in-house. That's not hard. We could engineer that and do that and close that in-house. That wouldn't be hard. It's taking out pavement, loom seed, a little more pavement for a multimodal path, some bollards, reflectors, things like that, some signage. We can do all that.
All right, so let's, when we get back to establishing priorities that we need to respond to, let's obviously that will be a consideration on where that needs to fall on the list. Let me, Libby, the floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just here out of interest and concern for the increased number of pedestrians. More this year with COVID-19, more families seem to be here outdoors walking and biking. And traffic is again around 5,000 cars on beach every day. And there are more larger vehicles. There are more SUVs and pickup trucks. And I wanted to echo the concern about going from beach to Main to the center of town by the cemetery in particular is very dangerous. I used to bike up to the bike path using that route, and now I go Great Oak to Pine Ridge to Hopkins to Tonsett to get out because it is so bad, especially pickup trucks that have trailers. They're not aware of how wide they are. So I just wanted to hear what traffic calming solutions were being thought about. And I also echo the concern about River Road, because when you coming back from Monument Road to get back to my home, it's such an awkward intersection because you have to look behind you. It's almost like going from Monument Road out to 28. You're at a tough angle as a motorist to get there.
Hey, Libby.
So, yeah.
Just while you're on that, I'm going to throw out to the group. The question, this would be more of a question maybe for George, that triangle, between River and School, is that a park? That's a, because that's connotated like Academy Place. You can't mess with Academy Place because it's a park, Now, if the triangle isn't a park, of course, obviously we do public meetings, we do all the right process, you could basically kind of take River Road, School Road as they lay out now, get rid of them and just go right through the park straight, you know what I mean? Tee it all off and then the rest becomes green space. So anyway, it's just a thought, while we're talking on it.
Let me give you some data on Beach Road. So in the month of May, we had just under 38,000 vehicles travel on Beach Road. And the electric the solar signs we have collects this data. Okay. So the daily average was about just a little over 1,200. The average speed of traffic was 33, but the 85th percentile was 37. So when you look at that average speed, you have to consider the outliers. A few outliers will throw it way off. So again, the 85th percentile is probably the most accurate reflection of what vehicles are really doing in that area. In June, we had a little over 48,000 vehicles on that road. That's a big number without question. Average vehicle dailies, about just a little over 1,600, average speed of 32, 85th percentile at 36 miles an hour. It also reported about 3% of all traffic in May and June exceeded 40 miles an hour. So that's the data. But I understand where you're coming from, Lib, because I used to jog that street all the time. And when a vehicle travels by you, when you're running on the side of the road at an 85th percentile of 36 miles an hour, that's fast. It's fast. And, you know, one of the challenges that we have, there are portions of that road that are designed well. And when I say that, it's very wide. And people are going to drive at a speed that they feel safe and comfortable. So if it's a wide road, it's well paved, speeds are going to increase. There's no question about it. I have additional stats about how we as a police department has responded. We're out there all the time. We're out there all the time. We have the ghost car out there, Libby.
Yeah, I know.
We don't have the manpower to cover every street in town, but if we have a vehicle that we could put out there to be visible, and for you folks that are listening at home, sometimes there is actual body in that car, so be careful.
I had a house guest last week that walked up to the car and expected to say hello to someone.
So we're really trying to be creative and respond to the concerns, but there's no question it's a challenge for us. The most frequent complaint I get as chief is speeding vehicles. We talked about Quonset Road earlier, Skate Beach Road, and I could go on and on and on about all the streets that people have concerns about. We will never eliminate the risk of crashes. It will never happen. What we're trying to do is minimize the risk. And talking about these methods, specifically devices that we might be able to use. But this is something that is a major concern of our residents in town.
Yeah.
No question about it.
And I think many people are distracted driving too. The vacationers are distracted, and then there's the phone, the telephone. You know, distractions have been increasing over the years. I was going to ask if perhaps I know where those two cars are on Beach Road. I know one's at Brick Hill and sometimes by Countryside. They could put it in front of my house. You're welcome to put it in front of my house. Because I think people that live here know where the car is. But you can't fool people. I understand that.
Again, we're not targeting the people that live in the area necessarily, because they know, like you said, they figure it out after a while. But we have so many visitors that come to our area that don't necessarily know. And more often than not, those are the folks that are speeding in the first place.
Yeah.
So those are the people that we're really trying to target and be visible. Hey, we're here, slow down.
So do those speed limit signs, they record the speed limit that people are using as they go by. So that's valuable. It
is very valuable, but I will say this, it's still a radar. It's picking up people's speed. So they're probably a little bit more cautious and they probably reduce their speed. The other device that we have, you don't know it's there. So
yeah, when you said that,
really good data for us to look at.
Yeah.
Really good data. So that's a little bit about the stats on Beach Road. I gave you some of the stats that we had from Skate Beach Road. We're constantly collecting these things because we know in terms of any potential problems, there are real problems and there are perceived problems.
Yeah.
How we respond, not that we can't respond to perceived problems, but how we respond really should be driven by the data that we collect. We look at crash data, we collect all this information. And we've had previous discussions as a committee when we establish priorities. Beach Road is always going to be a priority. There's no question about it. There's just so much traffic, pedestrians, cyclists. We could go on and on and on. And this is something we've been challenged with for many years. And I really don't know what the answer is above and beyond what we've done, but it's a discussion that needs to continue. And I'm certainly open to any suggestions that anyone has on how we can do this.
I did see a great sign in Maine, one of those solar speed limit signs. And when you're going the speed limit or under, it says, thank you. I thought it was a nice touch. I mean,
Nothing wrong with
it
some
draws your attention.
So, Libby, did you have anything else for us?
I was gonna suggest that the minutes to these meetings would be great if to be posted on the website, because I'm totally unaware of a lot of the things you're working on. And a lot of times I go to the Orleans website and look at minutes and look at, get Channel 18 on demand. So that would be a suggestion I wanted to put out there.
No, and it's a good one, Libby, and I appreciate that. One of the things that I feel was beneficial to this committee is that we're formal to a certain extent, and it's not like a Board of Selectmen's meeting. We're not regulatory. We're advisory to the Board of Selectmen. So to have a conversation and have a meeting, I think, and to get things done is really important. But with your recommendation in terms of the minute, yeah, that's something that I should be doing, and I'll do that.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Beth?
Hi, Scott. I just want to sort of continue on with Libby's discussion, Catherine. Because we're talking about, the width of the road and all that, but the types of vehicles that are out there and the width of those vehicles and the kind of crazy things that you see with trailers. I go behind an empty trailer that doesn't have weight on it and just watch that thing bouncing around from side to side. And there's got to be a law, right? I mean, that can't be an okay, vehicle to be going down the road with a, trailer moving side to side. And then, we were talking about the town layout and cars that park in the town layout. Mostly, I'm thinking of actually trucks with their trailers, and the landscapers that are parking that way generally, I'm gonna say 90% of the time, are parking right by their customer's driveway that they're not going into either because they don't like to back up, or the homeowner wants to be able to get their car in and out or whatever. But I think that those situations are as much the responsibility of the homeowner as it is the landscaper, and we focus on the landscapers, but maybe some communication with a homeowner who's employed landscaper is out on the street would be helpful. I know I've talked to you before about how wide a truck can be when you include the rear view mirrors, and it's pretty wide. So I don't think there's anything from an enforcement point of view, but so the last thing that I would say is that if we ever get into trying out a speed table, the trucks that are pulling trailers will be slowed down more than anybody else, because that's a much more disruptive moment to them than it is for somebody who's in a normal automobile.
And Meth, and just yesterday when I was on Quonset Road, there was a landscape, and they were parked in the road, and I spoke with the resident and the company, and we had that review and explain that this is a safety issue. I mean, we're having pedestrians, cyclists, and it's an issue, and neither one of them were very happy with me. You can't, there's no way they're going to walk away being pleased about them having to move their trucks. But at the end of the day, we're still going to have to do it. I mean, when you see a vehicle,
that, the next time that you're talking to the select board, bring that up and just say, we've been maybe a little gentle with enforcement on this because, you appreciate everybody's needs. But to me, if there's a driveway, those people should be in it. And they're using the town layout for, I think, reasons that aren't justified.
yeah, as you know, we use social media platforms to go and have a little campaign about this several months ago, and We reached out and contacted individual contractors in the area to let them know this is something that we are making a priority. I'll tell you, the blowback we received after that was, ridiculous. People aren't happy about it. But at the end of the day, Matt, it's not, we're not going to be everyone's best friend. We're going to have to take enforcement action. And we need to
It's a, it's a public safety issue.
Yeah.
Even for people who are in cars that have to pull out around blind spots. I think that maybe we could talk about it more, but that's the kind of communication you can put in real estate tax bills and just say, by the way, we want to start cleaning this up, and just be forewarned.
No, good suggestion. Okay, so the last item that I had before we go back to traffic calming is a stop sign request at the Kent's Point parking lot. I spoke with a lovely lady yesterday on the telephone at length who considers this a very dangerous situation where folks that are exiting the lot are not yielding to traffic. It's an accident waiting to happen. Initial thoughts, Tom, do you think that would be a real big issue? Is that considered Keziah's is a public way, correct? That's not a private way?
No, that's okay. So, but let's talk about this. So Frost Fish and Keziah are private ways. But the town has an agreement. I think it was a court case, actually, if my memory is right, and long before my time it happened, this is what I hear, that because we have Ken's Point, there's a court case that basically makes us responsible to take care of frost fish, not Keziah's, frost fish. Maybe, yeah, because, well, where the intersection of frost fish and Keziah are, I think it's technically Keziah from there up to Kent's Point. You guys know that? I can always.
Yes,
So,
it is.
What's that, Matt? Yeah?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. So with that being said, so my understanding is we don't own, but we're kind of responsible for the maintenance of frost fish and Keziah from, up frost fish to Keziah and then out to Kent's Point. We will from time to time go out there and we will, fill the potholes and do certain things. There was a request a few years ago for different signage and things. And I'm pretty sure we did that. It was a similar issue now that I recall a few years ago where people were concerned about everyone going down Keziah's out to Monument as opposed to running down frost fish. So, yeah, okay. So to answer the question, it's private, but we have some culpability out there. So you talked to the lady, Scott. What does she want?
She wants a stop sign for the vehicles exiting the parking lot. I think it's a reasonable request myself, but I throw it out to you.
Yeah, it's interesting, huh? What's that going to do for you, though? I'm not opposed. I'm like just thinking about, okay, you get the parking lot, and then there's a house right there, right on the right, if you're leaving. What does it do? I could see. Okay, whatever. I don't care.
Well, I think it's establishing the right of way. I think we would have potentially an enforcement issue. I can't enforce a stop sign in
you
shopping plaza. But I just think it is, it's nice. It's a good visual for establishing the right of way for people exiting the parking lot. They do not have the right of way. They have to yield to vehicles on Keziah's. And again, I think this is just a minimal thing that we could do,
Okay.
a low cost thing that just kind of identifies that issue.
All right, so Chief, I'm looking at the GIS on this thing. So you're talking, because if you're coming out of where the parking cars are, there's just a house on the right and that's it. But if you go a little farther, you actually come to Keziah's Lane. Okay, so you're talking at the intersection of the driveway coming out of the parking lot at Keziah's Lane. That's where she's talking.
Yeah, that's how it was
All right.
described to me, specifically the cars leaving the parking lot.
That makes more sense. It's going to stop them there. I don't care. I'm happy to. I'll put a stop sign up. It's private way, like you said. You can't enforce it, but I don't have a problem with that.
Jeff, any objection to that?
I think it's a good idea. I think it's a small thing to slow people down there. It's a tough spot. It's a
I
busy
agree.
spot. I realize there's enforcement challenges there, but I think if it encourages some safety there, it makes sense.
Okay. All right, we're all in agreement, Tom. Add that to your list. Let's
Is
get
that a
it on.
motion, Jeff?
I'd make a motion for that. Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
second it.
All right, anything further on that matter? All those in favor, Jeff,
Aye.
Tom?
All right,
I also approve.
Ron, you got that?
So now we can come back to the traffic comment discussion. And let me just throw this out. And just to build upon what Meth touched on, we need some movement. Let's get some stuff done. I think the last time that we really did some good work was with the solar speed limit signs. People are probably sick of us talking about it, but what a fantastic device it is, and it's been very successful. So what's next? I think that our focus was on Skakit Beach Road, not to diminish any other problem areas in town for folks that are listening at home. But our focus was Skakit Beach, the congestion from beachgoers, cyclists, pedestrians, vehicles. It's a recipe for disaster. We tried to minimize that risk with the raised paint. So my question next is, what's next? What else can we bring to the table? Meth, I know you're big on the speed tables. Is that a direction we want to go? I like it. I think when you see what they did near the airport in Hyannis, it appears to be working. It's a little bit more dramatic of an impact on vehicles. How do we feel about that as a committee? Anyone, please jump in.
I'm fine. I'm fine with looking into it, depending on the location, it could be great. My only, concern is it's expensive and is designed. So if you guys agree, you want to look into it, I'll reach out to, actually the designer doing the roundabout at 2839 has been very responsive and doing a nice job for us. I'll reach out to her just to get, instead of me, I don't have the time to look up all the parameters. Maybe I can get her to send me over design parameters for a speed table, and that saves me a ton of work. Then I can just look at it and go, okay, this is what we have to do to build a speed table. These are the requirements, design requirements. This is what it might look like, and I'll report back to the board next meeting.
Here's my concern, not with just this specific device that we're talking about, but just in general, Tom, and you just touched on it, not having time. 4 department heads, we're trying to get this stuff done. We need some worker bees. I think we all need to reach down in our departments and almost bring another group together to really get into the detail of what it's going to take to get this done, and then report to us, and then we can talk about this as a committee. Because we all know that as soon as we close this meeting down, we're off to dealing with 25 other things. Each of us have a lot of things on our table right now. So I don't want to see the work that needs to get done be put on the back burner as it relates to traffic study. I mean, I know I'm got a little bit off topic here, but do you agree?
Well, I think your point is very well taken. In fact, I want, if I can, Mr. Chairman, back to what Meth was talking about earlier about money. We're facing some difficult financial times. It's coming. I think it's coming. How bad? I don't know. That's to be seen. The COVID revenue hit definitely did not help the town of Fort Orleans or any of us. But we don't even know how much of a hit we really are taking yet. Kathy initially said 500,000, then came back at town meeting and said, well, it's more like 140, so we'll see what those numbers actually pan out and actually are. Time's a problem. I'll be honest with you and this is no offense, to Ron Trudeau, Ron's a hardcore DPW ops guy. He can run any piece of equipment I got. He can build basins. He can do anything. And no offense to him, but at the same time, he's not an engineer. I can tell Ron, this is how I want you to build this table, and he'll build the table for me. But he's also, you need my time a little bit into that as an engineer and, town's liability standpoint. And the reality, chief, is, and I'll say this to all of you, I get a $59 million sewer project breathing heavily down my neck right now, and it started. And it started last week. And I had a chat with Ron Trudeau this morning saying, Ron, you're going to have to help me, pick up not pick up slack, but pick up more off my plate. All my managers are going to have to pick up off my plate so I can be involved with the sewer project as much as I need to be. So time's going to be a problem.
Okay,
But-
Tom, so thank you, just teed this up for me. I want to suggest that for us to get the work done that we need to get done, I'm talking about that busy work, doing the research. We can sit here and talk about common techniques, speed tables, whatever it may be, but who has the time to really dig in and drill down and do the research? None of us. So what I'm going to suggest is that we need to bring some people into this committee. We need some new eyes, some new ears. We need to expand because
Well, I did give you a softball, didn't I?
you did, and you're
gonna hit it out of the park.
We need help. We need help. I can certainly, reach down in my ranks and ask officers to do research and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's summertime on Cape Cod. We're out straight. So should we entertain, one thing we all know is that we have a lot of talented people in this community, a lot of talented people with some pretty impressive backgrounds. Should we try to reach out and grab some of that talent and bring it onto this committee to help us?
Doug Prentice. Remember Doug?
I know, who's that?
Doug Prentice he's a traffic engineer, worked for FST. They got bought out by Stantec about 4 or 5 years ago. And Doug decided to retire. He did the Old Colony Way concept plans for us. Doug has done a lot of work for the town of Orleans from a traffic engineering standpoint. I don't know if he's interested, but he's a good guy, and he is a serious traffic engineer.
Beautiful. We've had.
He taught, and Chief, I don't mean to interrupt. He taught the complete street programs on behalf of Mass DOT.
Wow.
I'm not sure if there are any charter restrictions. I don't think so, because we've had civilians on this committee in the past. Are you guys okay if I explore this further? Is there any disagreement? We don't need a vote or anything, but I don't want to take this in the direction if you guys aren't on board. Jeff, you okay with this?
I think you should reach out to John Kelly and tell him the traffic, safety committee wants to add citizens onto the committee to help support all the work that needs to be done.
I agree with you.
That's a
I didn't
motion.
want to do that without talking to you first.
I would second that motion that Tom just made. I think we do need some help. And when it gets into the nitty gritty details of speed bumps versus speed tables, although I'm familiar with the concepts of them, the actual effects it has, say, on our response as a fire department, but also other implications of that, I'm not up to speed on that. No pun intended, actually pun intended, but there is how those different devices, we have to look at response times. That's our responsibility here at the fire department. But conceptually, we got to do something. I'm all for making the community safer, but there's pros and cons to anything. So digging into those details, the minutia of that stuff, that's the hard part that I have, and I think that you guys are expressing as well. And that we do need a little bit of help. And if we got a guy like that in the community, maybe he can give us some pros and cons to those things and how they affect public safety, but also the general public. So I think it's worth exploring, Chief and Tom. Great idea.
Beth, what do you think?
I'm going to have to sign off here in a minute. I think this is great. I would support this. The only add-on I would make, and this is maybe a little bit in George Meservy's bailiwick, is trying to make better use of the Cape Cod Commission, because they've got people schooled in this, and at least finding some, opening some channel of communication and advice with them would be good.
Okay, thanks. So what I'll do is I'll touch base with John Kelly. Thanks, Beth. And see if John has any objections to this. Make sure I'm not infringing on any charter restrictions, and we'll take it from there. So in terms of Skakit Beach Road, we're going to explore the speed tables.
Yeah, I'll dig into it a little bit.
Okay, here's my general feeling about this. I think that we have to be very cautious not bringing things forward because of money. Let's establish what we need and we bring it to the Board of Selectmen, and ultimately they can decide whether or not the community has the finances to support it. So what I'm going with there is that I think that I want to get to the board relatively soon and request funds for solar speed limit radar units to address the issues that we talked about on Main in the vicinity of River Road. And if the town doesn't have the money to do it, then so be it.
All right, Chief, I do apologize. I squirreled for a second. I got distracted. What was that last piece you said? What about River Road?
That I want to request that funds to purchase 2 solar speed limit signs for that area we were talking about at Main and
Yeah.
River. As just a starting point.
Yeah.
And then when we have more information on the speed table, we can bring that back into the discussion. Because eventually we might, I mean, we still don't know if we can use this, this grant opportunity, whether we're gonna have enough time. But we can certainly start addressing some of the other issues, again, Main Street and River Road. Everyone okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay. That's all that I had on the agenda. Anything for the good of the order? Anything else we need to discuss? I certainly will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
Okay, anything further?
Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. Thanks for taking the time. We appreciate
Sure,
it.
thank you.
Okay, guys, take care.
All
Good
righty,
one, everybody.
bye.
Take care.